Breaking the gray.
Sarah, how are you?
Very good. Thank you, Russ. Yes, Friday night.
Friday
Thank
night,
crunch it's Friday.
and it's better than just all right. Your Friday night, you're gonna have a good night, I think.
Friday night's all right, for sure.
You're wearing your guitar pick earrings. Are those any specific artist guitar picks?
No, they just add to my rebel persona.
Your rebellion. I get it. I love it, Sarah. I've been so grateful this week to see you 3 times. Like I feel blessed when I get to see you 3 times. And today's guest, unlike other guests this week, joins us with a really great topic. Not that the other guests didn't have great topics. We had one guest that showed up and just we don't know what he said, but we're here. We're very excited that Pavel's here. And Sarah, let's introduce our guest and jump right into it.
Yes, I'm going to introduce Pavel. Thank you so much for coming on, Pavel. Actually, I'm interested to see what you're going to be talking about. Last time that I actually saw you in person, we were doing one of your silent breathing meditation, conga line, ecstatic dance, which was fabulous. And of course, yeah, so I know that you're big into the breathing. I know you're big into all of that kind of thing. But thank you so much for coming on. And we're really interested in what you're going to talk about today.
Yes, I'm so glad to be here. And oh my gosh, your energy is like already impeccable. So it's like the number one best thing in your life, having a nice times and laugh. Yes. And and I'll be
laugh. You have to laugh, Pavel. We can't take life too seriously. It's just not worth it. It's not worth it.
I concur. Joy is the religion. But so I'll be talking about I guess journey from darkness to light. So something that I've talked about quite a bit at conferences and masterminds and beyond has been this way of life, and I call it teachings of Noah. And maybe just to understand, so when I'm on a stage, I'm the Noah Aeon, and Noah means movement, Aeon is all or none, and it symbolizes duality. And essentially, I don't know about you, but I've been living since early age in these like highs and lows and goods and bads, and life is going for you, and then the next day you turn around and everything else is not going for you. It goes to hell basically. And and I was like, there must be more. And I start questioning, like, is there more, and what are these answers, and what is this? And so it led me on a crazy journey through self transformation. And essentially, I spent last 15 years traveling immensely. I mean, probably 70, 80 countries, and essentially I went on a quest to figure out, like, what is this life, and why are we here, and who am I in this, and whose life are we living? And essentially I came to this cave where I spent 10 days in complete darkness with no food, no light. And this is about 7 years ago in Thailand. And I walked in there as this busy entrepreneur. I was opening all of these businesses, and thinking that I'm living this dream of money and whatever. And I was unhappy and tired. And it took me about 7 days out of the 10 before I finally turn off my monkey brain. And when I say, this thing just would not shut up, like, you literally have just yourself, and no food, right? So all you're thinking about is lamb chops all night. And for real, you have like dreams seeing lamb chops everywhere. That was one of them. But anyway,
lamb chops. I'm surprised. Like, were you even like a lamb fan before you went into the cave?
It was the only meat I would really eat, but it was really weird. Like, specifically lamb chops. I just saw them hanging everywhere. It was like a torture.
Wow. That is amazing. I'm so interested in this because I know that we have the American football player Aaron Rodgers who just did this. He did the light deprivation, went into a cave for 10 days and came out, and he said, when I come out, I'm going to have a decision about my NFL career. And he came out and everybody was judging him, like, oh, why could he do it? Why would he do that? Like, but I'm so interested because you're right. Like, turning off your brain from always thinking and always worrying about what's happening or what happened. I would love to just jump into it. Like, how did the whole process go, and and what did you eat when you got out? I'm curious about all of it.
Yeah, no, so actually I saw that article and I think it's amazing how popular it's getting. And also Aubrey Marcus, he has a whole documentary now on just darkness as well. So it's funny, like darkness is probably the most powerful healing tool that I've ever done. And if I tell you I've done every psychedelic, iboga, ayahuasca, I mean literally when I say that I've tried everything, I literally spent over $500,000 in the last 15 years
Wow.
to figure out what does happiness and longevity actually mean. And in this process it led me to this dark room, which completely, I had to forget everything I've ever learned about biohacking and healthy living, and because it all goes to hell, because then you figure out that like there's this other um, part of us that guides everything, right? Whatever we call it, God, universe, angels, it really matters not depending on people's beliefs. But there is something that you don't hear and listen, especially when we're busy living our everyday life. And so when you step into that cave or that dark room, you basically have nothing but yourself. So every thought that you've ever had, every interaction, every experience, everyone that you've ever met, all of a sudden starts coming to you, kind of like if you're doing an ayahuasca journey or some sort of other discoveries. But the difference is all on your own. So it's like your own supply. And so basically, it took me 7 days to just like surrender, basically. And then I start crying and crying, and it was this most powerful, blissful experience of my life, where I finally went into who I am, not who I am not or trying to be. And so it like clicked, and literally in that cave, that's when I created the Noah Aeon. And basically the whole mission now is to bring people into unity and move into harmony instead of bouncing in duality. And so what the clear message was, I walked out of there and I pretty much sold all of my companies and everything that I had at that time. And I had the clear vision. You've got to move into service, and you got to bring all of these tools and all of these teachings over the past 15 years into these fun experiences. And so that's what you guys took, was called System Reset, which is one of our signature, offerings to basically transform, to get you back into your essence, into that harmony, health, happiness. And I've done it now 4 times. So I've spent 40 days in darkness.
Oh my goodness. And do you get the same message every time? Because it sounds like what you're saying, you let go of trying to think of what you should or shouldn't be doing, and just let this come to you rather than you kind of formulate it. So it's interesting to me. Was that reiterated every time, or did you kind of have different ideas every time you came out?
Funny. So, think of yourself as a core inside of an onion, right? So you have all of these layers that we put on each other, or on ourselves, right? So there's a layer of like, I have to go to work and I have to get money and I have to, think of these as all of these layers, right? That keep on like layering or maybe almost like a filter, that gets really dirty. And then we live and live this life that we think we live, and we forget who we are, and we forget like what do we actually like to do, and how do we want to express ourselves. So in there you go straight to the core. It takes 3-4 days first to just like detox and to get past the food thing, but it's a breatharian retreat. That's something that maybe I should include. And so it's not just another dark room. This is also a dark room that initiates you into being able to be nourished by prana, by source energy. And this is out there, right? So the first time I went, I was like, what? You don't have to eat food and you're okay? And you have to like, rebrand all of these ideas and concepts. But source and energy is in anything. And so whatever it's, Tai Chi, Qigong, like there's always been ancient wisdom around chi, but then how do we actually use this inner power? And it's interchangeable with love. Divine love is the same, basically, form. So in there you start tapping into this divine love, this divine source, in form of this pulsation. And what was the craziest part, it took me 2 weeks to reintroduce food after I spent 10 days of not eating because I was not hungry. And that's when, for the first time, it clicked. I was like, holy shit, like you actually can be nourished as long as you live within this like lifestyle and be okay without eating even just so much food, you know?
So it's no food or water, but also no light.
So there is water because not everybody is like ready to convert. So like there is a water, there is no light, and there is no physical food. So basically, you're completely pitch black for that whole time.
Wow, that is interesting because I mean I'm a light person, as you may or may not know. You know, I obsess about light, and I'm all about light. I've got a company that's based around light, and my understanding was that yeah, you can go without food if you're in sunlight because you're getting the electrons, you know, from the sun. In effect, you know, you're able to go through that respiratory chain and generate energy. But it's a totally different thing to go no food in dark for 10 days. And then when you came out, you're saying you had another couple of days where you still were fasting, really?
Well, so that's the biggest thing that you have to rethink. So when you're fasting, you're losing weight. And so the first three dark rooms, I didn't get this. Every time I got out, I would lose 10, 15 pounds, even though I don't have much to lose to begin with. And and then basically, so no matter what, it's 100% health improvement, right? So even if you are in a fasted state for that long and you're just on water, I mean, you're gonna come out and your eyes are clear because you're not bombarded by all light, your smell, taste. I mean, everything is so heightened, right? But what's incredible, so there is the different sources and different ways to get chi. So that's why you've got breatharians, which is more breath. Then you've got people that get nourished by sun. There's
Yeah.
especially in India, right? Like through
Mhm.
sun gazing,
For sure, yeah.
and we do these experiences too. But this source is inside of you. So the whole time, basically, you're doing these meditations that you're slowing everything down into this like keynote, into this pulsation. And what I've noticed, and this is from personal experience, because I at first didn't get this, right? Like I was hungry, I was seeing the lambchops, and then this last time I went, right? It was a totally new experience that I was able to like. I was like, I get it. So it's this pulsation, this subtle frequency, this different ways of resonating in a different keynote, essentially, that allows you to get nourished by what the inherited self is, which is love, divine love. And so that's what fuels you.
Wow, yeah, I'm impressed. I mean, yes, I am having to rearrange my mindset already just by what you're saying because I would have doubted it. I would if I didn't hear you actually say you experience it. You know, if I read that, I would kind of think, I don't know, I think they're making that up. You know, but now you're saying it. So tell us then. So you came out of your dark room. So what was your kind of your aha, which seems to be consistent across all your experiences
Can I ask one question before we come out of the cave?
of the dark?
Yeah. How was your sleep in there? Because I mean, Sarah and I talk a lot about circadian rhythms and having to shift all those. I'm curious about like how your sleep was impacted. Did you find that you were sleeping more because it was dark, or did you find that your patterns were off? And did you feel more rested?
Yeah, so it's a great question. So actually, so there's like a stages that you go through. So the first 3 to 4 days is just arriving, cleansing, clearing, and a lot of times the first 3 to 4 days, your prana levels are not as high yet, so you're actually still fasting. So just to go back, like there is portion when you fast, but then the whole key to being fully nourished by prana is that you actually stop losing weight, you even maybe gain weight, and that's what's really the whole crazy part. But then the about fourth, fifth, and sixth day, this is when your pineal gland clears out and you lose completely your circadian rhythm. Like your body no longer knows if it's day or night. It does not bound to the same rules anymore, which is pretty crazy. Then the only way you know if it's day or night is you hear, the nature. So like outside of the cave, you can hear like, just birds and different times of the day, whatever's happening. But then about day 6 or 7, it literally is like the biggest psychedelic trip of your life. And Jas Muhin, who is the facilitator, the breatharian queen basically of this. She teaches you then how to turn these lights off because it's so bright. And so it's all your DMT basically just starts pounding massive, amounts naturally. And then I've been doing breath work on it as well. So you go so deep, like you go literally like out of out of this place. But yeah, so by then you just see lights everywhere, whatever it's orbs, different shapes, colors. It comes in many different ways.
Right. Yeah. Part of the scientist part of me is thinking, oh my God, is that not the brain shutting down? Because you've had no food and you're in the dark. That's what's coming to mind. Because obviously you're seeing it as a very mystical, spiritual experience. And part of me, I have to admit, is thinking, oh my God, that's kind of like your brain thinking that it's dying and kind of putting out its last transmission to kind of get the organism to move and find food and find shelter and find light. But you're saying it's more of tapping into your own source.
Yeah, so once you move past the three F's, the survival mechanism, you go into a very deep state. So basically, there is a portion, right, where you're like, "What am I doing? Why am I here?" All the negativity comes in. But then, when you keep on surrendering, you focus on your breath. You move into the body's awareness, and you just kind of keep on questioning what else is there, what else is there. That's when the true discovery of our true meaning and self is that is not bounded to what we know right now, and that's why it is hard to explain. I mean, it's something you gotta experience in a lot of ways.
Pavel, you're coming out of this cave. I'm, first off, I want to know what you ate when you came out the first time. I want to know what was the first thing you ate, and how full were you after like 3 bites?
Well, the first time I did it, I ate everything. I did it completely the wrong way. My Labrador brain just like took over, and you smelled. So, by the way, when you walk out, you look at your skin and you look at the bird. Your eyes are so clear. Every color is like 10 times more vibrant than before. So you're like a new kid that's just like, wow, everything is so beautiful. And thank you for seeing everything because I am not in the cave anymore. But then this last time that I left, I for the first time, I almost feel like I like, you know, graduated to a different place where, I walked in there clean. I walked in there already week before only on liquid diet. And then, basically 2-3 months before already start really cleansing, so that way I don't have that crazy switch. And then as soon as I walked out, I mean, I basically have been pretty much liquid. I eat once, maybe a little bit twice a day, but it's mostly all liquid diet. And this time it like stuck with me. It actually ended up, not leaving me, and eating everything that I saw in front of me.
Wow. Yeah. Well, obviously, kind of the cleaner you get, the more it's one of those things. It's cumulative by the sound of it.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. It's all about, and that goes for, every level. So one of the things that I teach in this journey through self-transformation is that we operate in these three different levels of consciousness. There's the me, which is your body, mind, emotions, and spirit. Then there's the we, which is the environment that you surround yourselves with, as well as the relationships that make up, the collective consciousness. And then there's the be, which is the essence, the ultimate expression, and that's the supra consciousness. I always like to say, if scientists know that this universe was created 13.5 billion years ago, how did that happen? It's that like macro aspect of us. And so then basically we teach people on how to balance and activate each and every aspect of this. And essentially that's what led me through the journey through self-transformation. It went on this level.
Yeah. I've done things where, people are saying, okay, it's going to be this profound experience like Cambo and ayahuasca, and had hell of a time in some of the thing, is a rough old times for some of these experiences. But I think it's one of those things that you have to like peel off the onion layers as you go down. Maybe some of us are kind of bigger onions to start with, like a lot of stuff piled on there. So, gradually kind of getting down to that core perhaps.
Yeah, it's a constant unhacking, like it's funny. I spoke at the Congress at the panel, and they were asking, what are your most important biohacks, right? And I've been biohacker for many years, right? Like fully in, like, in every aspect. And then I realized, it's actually unhacking. It's to forget everything we've known about everything and tune into this system inside of us that always knows what's the best for us.
Yeah, that's you just titled our episode. Thank you. I always struggle coming up with the titles of our episodes. You just titled it for us. Thank you. It is interesting because what you mentioned about going there and it sort of breaks down all of these things. You kind of go into survival mode, I bet, a little bit, where your body's in kind of shock. But okay, so now we're out. You've now created this amazing company, a service company helping people. Let's talk a little bit about sort of connecting those two together. What were the things that you realized after your 3 sessions in the cave, 40, what'd you say, 40 days in the cave? Um, is that your book? That's going
Totally,
to be your
yeah.
book title too. But like that now for it's Noah Aeon.
Yeah, you got it.
Okay, so let's talk about the company itself and how does it help and what are some of the practices that you're bringing to bear from the cave, and no pun intended there.
Yeah, well, so maybe if it helps, I can share a quick presentation for those that are they're watching. Um, it might be the best way to do it. And let me see. Let me know if you can see it.
Yes, we can.
Yeah, we can.
And so, yeah, so long story short, this is essentially the symbol that ended up meaning so much in my life for me. And the teachings of Noah are literally, it's a combination of 15 years of deep pain and struggling, and it was really started in darkness. In these moments. So kind of just a really quick how I got here. I actually grew up with shaman since a young age, and so I was always very close to spirituality, but I left it on the back burn. And then I was like really driven to become a professional athlete. So I actually was a professional cyclist for several years at the highest level, but I completely killed myself with health. And that's when I had the first Aeon part of my life. So think about Aeon as the bad guy, okay, and think about Noah as the good guy. Now I want you to now go on a little game with me, because if you think about these voices that we have, there's always this one voice that's telling you, eat healthy and go to sleep. And then there's this other voice, that Aeon voice, that is telling you, get another beer or go to this place. And then one beer becomes this. And then, it keeps on moving on to the downward spiral in our life. And so we're either in regenerative spiral, which is the Noah, or the degenerative. And that's all made up of these choices. So in this time, I actually had massive depression. I had a chronic fatigue syndrome. I had an Epstein Barr. I woke up actually in the hospital after Czech national race because my body shut down completely. And that's what, by the way, led me to biohacking and Wim Hof and all of the different, health part of stuff. Now, in this time, I also created my first company. And so since the age of 17, I was actually became an entrepreneur, and I made my first million by the time I was 21 years old with OrangeTheory Fitness. And so it big part of my life was this, drive from cycling. I wanted to bring it to business, but I had this higher questioning because I was constantly unhappy. There was something like, is this it? Like what? Like you're gonna have 15 locations and then 50 locations and what? And that belonging calling for more kept on bringing me into these experiences. And so I committed myself that every 2 to 3 months I'm going to do something ridiculous to find true meaning of life. And so that's what brought me to the dark cave. That's what brought me to, I did a samurai camp in Japan for 30 days with the Zen masters. I studied with the psychics in Brazil, in a psychic village, to open up my psychic abilities, and it goes on. And let me tell you, I lived such a two extremes. I literally went from private jets to being almost homeless. So by the time I was 27 or 28, I pretty much lost everything. but this is also when I went into the dark cave for the first time. And so as soon as I walked out of the dark cave, I literally decided that I want to be in service and do all this good stuff. But at the same time, I didn't also change my belief system around abundance. And so all of my abundance went off. I had divorced. I literally had to completely lose my old self to actually integrate into, this Noah Aeon, which is what we're doing now.
Pavel, yeah, I have a question because that's something that I've dealt with myself, and I have a feeling you're going to get to it. You talk about regenerative and degenerative. I find that getting on the degenerative track is really easy. It's actually, and it's actually far more consuming, and it's very hard to get back to regenerative. So it's like stopping working out or it's stopping a diet. It's very easy to go back to those old patterns of degenerative. And how do you break it? I too was on a path. I felt like I had found purpose in being, meditative and breath work, and was on an amazing path. But then all of a sudden, I got back on the degenerative cycle and have stopped meditating and stopped doing those things that helped me find peace. Are there tricks here? Not tricks for your brain, but are there things you can do to stop the pattern of degenerative?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I hear you. Sorry, let me quickly move this here. So I hear you so much, and this is when basically I've been bouncing and playing this ping pong for so long. And when I tell you, I was playing this crazy ping pong at the early stages. I mean, I would literally be, this touring DJ that is playing in front of thousands of people and, snoring cocaine until the morning and going from one after party to another after party and completely having a side of me that like was in this dark shadow. And then I had this other side of me, which was the Noah side that literally would wake up in the morning and then go get a cold pressed juices and stay on a keto diet. And for a long time, I played this left and right extreme into a crazy extreme, and it was so unhealthy for my psyche and for myself that basically what had to happen in this place was I had to shave off the dark side. And so basically until we live in the left and right, we're living in duality. And anything that comes from duality, it comes from essentially from our mind. So whatever our belief systems are about our life, about ourselves, that's kind of where every thought creates then words that make up the action that we're seeing. And so it all starts with how are we, who am I, right? What am I thinking of myself? Where am I going? Because if we don't have these times to reassess and assess and pause, then this voice gets so loud. And I actually, so maybe here, I'm going to show you part of this journey. There is basically three different stages to this, unhacking, so to speak, or journey through self transformation. And so, for me, it actually at first started with the physical body, um, which which essentially most people in their progress, right, they become aware of their health. So like for me it was a food sensitivity and getting on keto diet and eating organically and how do we sleep. And so this is really when you look at the body, I don't have to go in depth here with when it comes to just biohacking, understanding and knowing right what it needs. But it was the first essential step of this awakening, because if the temple is not retuned, then nothing else is properly functioning. Now, then the second part was the mind. And so I've always trained with mind, especially as an athlete. I would like learn how to remove these fearful belief system. But it really took me on a journey of like, after every thought there's another thought and another layer. And so what I start looking at my life is as these little micro and macro cycles within these different ways of expression. So one way of expression is the me, right? So that's the individual consciousness, yourself, that is made up of these, four elements that we all can grasp on. Then the second element is the we, right? The collective consciousness, and that's what makes us, but also within another, group of people or environment. And then it's the B, which is the ultimate one. Now, in this process, essentially, when I was looking into mind and into, thoughts, I first start rewriting any negative thought that I had about myself or about another. So literally, I have books filled up of just writing down every single time that I thought, wrongly about myself, because it wasn't until I rewrote these, like either scratch them or delete them, that I start seeing actually positive, thoughts coming in. And what's important to discern between our mind is that there's the monkey brain, which is that Labrador brain or ego, or whatever we call it. But then there's also this other mind, which is connected to our divine purpose, and that's the silent voice. So this is why sometimes when you have the loud voice, overpowering this silent, we a lot of times don't pay attention because of the way we live. And that's why it's so important to slow down and go into breathwork
Yeah.
meditation.
Pavel, you said something interesting, because I had a therapist once that said, your negative self-talk is just, you need to work on it. And she was like, write yourself a letter with the negative self-talk. And it was actually really hard to write a letter to myself telling me how bad I was at everything, because I was like, I'm not writing that down. But the problem is that you don't know what you're really doing day in and day out to yourself by all that negative self-talk. And then also, and I imagine writing it down allows you to see it, but rewriting it, so you're actually rewriting it to your brain. I could also imagine too, sometimes we're lashing out at other people because of our own issues. So we're like, oh, that's so and so didn't do such and such. Like, that is just you lashing out. And I imagine writing that down and rewriting that allows you to find compassion and empathy and all those things. And having compassion, empathy for yourself, I imagine, is a pretty powerful tool as well.
Oh my gosh. I mean, I hated myself, doubted myself, right? Like it's everybody has these inner thoughts that are not always of the highest good, but these thoughts are coming back to us constantly in the same cycle until we finally recognize them, become aware of them, and let them go. Which a little bit later, I'll show you a 4-step process of actually how to get this thing out of your system. And just with the mind. So what's important to understand is that our monkey brain or ego, there's nothing wrong with it, but we got to wire it as if it's like a software, right? So like the body's the hardware, the brain or the mind is the software, and then whatever and just like computer, when we're connected to the internet, we can download new software or new applications. But the same way it works when you go into a meditation, when you slow it down, you connect to the internet instead, and then you can download, upload, and work with these thoughts and emotions as well. And that it's a good segue to emotion. So emotions actually, I was trying to avoid them at all costs, and I feel like a lot of men have the same issue, because we're not meant to express, and not we don't grow up to see crying is as a weakness, right? As like the normal way to look at men. And so really like feeling who I am and start rewiring all of the past traumas that I've been through, and who I hurt and who hurt me, that had started releasing this crazy burden on my chest, which it was a hard journey, and it still is a journey, right? It's like a never ending, but it gets better and it gets lighter, and that dark side, that aeon, it just starts diminishing to a point where you hit the first 51% out of 100, let's say, and then you go on that track and you stick to the track at all costs. You will get to a point where there's no coming back unless you really really get disconnected again. And and that led me to the final aspect, which is the spirit. And now this is the part where I wish we had more education, because that is really the beginning, the most
This
important
is the
part.
part, Pavel, I'm going to be honest. This is the part where Sarah is always like, "Come on now."
Don't
So we got,
preempt me, Russ.
yeah, I know. Let's convince Sarah here, because
I'm,
I'm with you, Pavel. I'm here. Sarah, she's a scientist. She's a scientist.
So Sarah,
I'm wide open.
I'm gonna show you right now how you're
All right,
using
Sarah, I didn't mean to
all of
shame you,
these.
Sarah. Sorry.
No, so basically,
I
so think about it this way. We've got a spirit, right? No matter however we believe in this or seeing this, there's something else out there. And for me, through this training, I think of spirit as a wave in an ocean. So we're part of an ocean, which is like the mass collective soul, and then there's a spirit that is the individuality of each and every one of us. Now, think of a spirit or that ocean as a drop into, this physical dimension that we call, life. And essentially this spirit is here to learn through the density of what we're, experiencing. Now, in this process, we actually are connected to the physical senses, which is the five senses that we know, everybody is using. But then there's these other four senses that we're not taught, and everybody has these, which is why I've been on a mission to share this with everyone without the whole woo wow aspect, because I'll show you how you're using them every day. So there's four psychic senses, or four senses that are not seen, and essentially there is psychic hearing, seeing, feeling, and knowing. So when I'm talking about psychic hearing, it's that whisper, that little voice that you have inside of your head that always has your highest interest. So that's how you know how to discern these. It's that voice that's telling you, don't drink again, go to sleep, stop this pattern. And that voice gets dimmer and dimmer, darker we go, more aeon we become, essentially. Now, in this process, that voice can also get much louder and louder more we communicate with it. Now, this is where it can get a little like wooey wow, right? Like, who are you? What are you communicating to? But learning how to communicate with this voice is really essential because, and again, this is from personal experience. At first, I was like, what is this? Where is this? I don't hear it. And then I start talking to it as if it's my best friend. And I start acknowledging this voice like, thank you, I heard that. And you start having this relationship with this spiritual part of you through these senses. And it actually, like, seriously starts talking back to you. So that's psychic hearing. Now, then you've got something called psychic seeing, which is visions, right? So that could be lucid dreaming for business visionaries, for example. That could be, if you create a business plan before that business ever happens, that's a psychic vision right there. You're envisioning something in a near future that you are pulling from somewhere, right? And so that's just a few examples of seeing. And same way, the way you develop this is when you do see something, you say, thank you, I saw that. Now, in this process, I've actually also, some people call this the higher self or lower self, which would be the mind. And this higher self is a way to communicate with the spirit, right? And so it communicates with you through these four senses. But nice way to use the visions is that you ask your higher self, show me a yes. And so for me, it's a thumbs up. Or if I say show me a no, it's a thumbs down. And then show me a neutral, show me it's literally like a neutral icon in my vision. And again, at first I was like, what is this? But it becomes so strong. It's so easy to start visualizing that then you start making all of your decisions based on your highest interest instead of the limited egoic self that only knows what it learned from the past, projecting into
Right.
the future. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I am there actually, Russ. Russ thinks I'm not in contact with all this stuff, but I think it's semantics. Sometimes it's just the words. But I do all kinds of woo-woo things because I also think everything's connected. And sometimes I go and talk to the animals in the park over here. I'm in the south of England. We have, squirrels and magpies and crows and whatever. And I just think, and then I imagine what they're saying to me, and I kind of think, yeah, okay, that sounds reasonable, and I actually have a conversation, but I think it is just me talking to something where you're getting, it's almost like inspiration. Russ and I are both reading this Rick Rubin book where he's kind of talking about creativity, and I think it's everyone's saying a similar thing. It's about intuition, inspiration. Where is it all coming from? It's coming from some big deposit, source, some source of a collective consciousness somehow.
Well, I have many questions here, but I have more of like a tutorial question here of strengthening it. because I've been there, and I'm aligned with you, Pavel. I'm aligned with you, Sarah. Like I've been there, and sometimes I look like a crazy person talking to myself, but acknowledging it and then keep going. I mean, that's what the creative flow state really is. And I imagine as a professional athlete, you hit that flow state and you're just in it, and that's the only way to get there is to have this ability to get there. Strengthening it and keeping it is really hard. And that's why I talk about this degenerative thing so much, because I have fallen off so many times, and to get back on, to get back there is actually really challenging. And I'll give you an example. We had someone on that talked about self-hypnosis. And so I did self-hypnosis every day for like 2 months. And all of a sudden I stopped dreaming. I stopped creating. Something blocked. And like all of a sudden my brain just shut off. I was trying to do lucid dreaming and trying to strengthen it, because my tapping into my subconscious was allowing me to, that's where my creative self is. That's getting there. And I imagine by telling myself I shut it off, I literally shut it off. But I imagine that there's like this strengthening thing that you can do. And if it's talking to yourself, Pablo, what are some of those exercises that you can do to keep you in that flow state or in that positive state?
Yeah. So, I mean, so first of all, it's all about creating the right, owning your time means owning your life. So I've really had to do a lot of work when it comes to blocking off different times for myself and working on this. But really quickly, just to add it, so we talked about psychic seeing, hearing, but then there's also psychic knowing, which is also called, could be intuition. And I just want to give you an example of how you're using it. So, for example, maybe there was a party that you didn't want to go to, and then something happened there, and you were like, I knew that something would happen, or I knew this person would cheat on me, or this business partner would be a wrong person. Like, there's a sense of knowing. And the way you discern that is that when you know, you don't think. When you think, you don't know. Does that make sense? So
Yep.
this is how you can always know if it's the actual sense, the psychic sense, or if it's your mind. And then the final one is psychic feelers, and this is, or empaths is another way to speak to this, is people that literally feel things in their body, and they speak this way too. So they're like, if you go into a room and there was a fight, then you feel something doesn't feel right, and that's our psychic feeling. And so I just wanted to show you that, like, we're using all four of these in a different times. Some people are stronger at two or the other. So I always say is whatever ones you feel strongest at, uh, strengthen these. And the way you strengthen them is you spend that time every day and you claim in simple things. Like, you can start with, my higher self, show me a yes if I'm a man or if I'm a woman. Like, you just start with like an obvious like things. So that way you build that strength. And then when you see it, hear it, feel it, or know it, you're like, thank you, I see that, or thank you, I heard that. And then you start building this muscle, and it's almost like becoming a kid again. It's like a playground of its own language without a word that is unlimited, in a lot of ways. And I actually created a whole 8-point lifestyle that is exactly done for what you were asking, where you follow this lifestyle, it keeps you resonating in a certain keynote, because ultimately frequency is like everything. What I mean, we're the way we're resonating, or the way we're either receiving or sending, is what determines the quality of our life. And essentially, retuning all of these instruments, think about your body, mind, emotion, spirit as 4 different bodies that need to be fueled, that need to be balanced. And then, you work through that as the individual, consciousness. And yeah, and that kind of goes into then, so on this journey I was like, okay, I'm really moving forward with the body. I finally feel healthy, my sleep is good, my energy is good, my emotions are really under control, my mind, is not thinking as negatively anymore. But then naturally you're like, okay, cool, now I've been on this self mastery, but now I want to serve it. Like, how do I share this with the world, with others around me? And, quick disclaimer, so many people don't think that they have anything to say. And what I found in my life is everyone, no matter who they are, they have the power, the energy, and the need to say, to speak up, because you never know that collective around you that needs to hear it from you at the given time. Because ultimately, we're all breathing the same air. we're all coming from the same place, and it's just the limited belief system thinking that I have to be a doctor to be something, which is wrong. um, so then it goes into the collective consciousness. And for me, so it first started with really looking into relationships, because I failed all of them. Whatever was my marriage, whatever it was with family. I mean, at portions of my life I literally screwed up everything I possibly could. And essentially it was because of this aeon side of myself that just wanted more and wanted to build more companies and more of this, and it just like overcame me over it was this overpowering of darkness. And so I've really had to do so much forgiveness, and not, well, to myself, but mostly just I literally messaged everyone after the first cave, and I was like, please forgive me, I'm sorry. I was such an asshole. And it was funny, the response I got was quite amazing, like for most of them.
Right.
uh,
Yeah, because most people are just so concerned about themselves and not even thinking about you, Pavel. They're like, okay. But I do want to ask you something about the cave, because were you in the cave by yourself?
so in my area, yes, but then we have a group meditation. So there's like a collective area where there's about 20 of us, and then everybody has their own, like a room that you occupy. So it's mostly silent except for when we do the group meditations.
Wow. I would find that, like, being in a dark cave, you're also depriving yourself of connection, right? But if you're there with other people doing that connectivity, it sounds like it's an important part of the process, is having that group meditation.
Well, you know what saved me the first 3 days is I literally went back a year after year that I could remember in my life. And by the way, it's really bad how I didn't remember so many years. Like, have you ever, by the way, thought about this?
Yeah.
Like we literally just keep on going forward, but then like what happened backwards. And so I did this exercise where I would imagine all of those situations. Some were good, some were not, and then I would just call my energy back from whatever I left it in that area or in that person, and then I would send the energy back to the person and to the area whatever it left on me. So I start like going backwards until I remember to literally face any of these situations. And it's crazy because you have nothing but time. You will literally continue just seeing all of these things, and with gratitude, with love, with release, then you're really starting to do the work.
Hmm. Hmm. That's interesting.
Yeah.
That's super interesting.
Interesting. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So, Pavel, I'm curious then, when in your practice here and the collective consciousness, how important is connection and connectivity to people? And also, you start to recognize those people that take you to the Aeon. And I understand that, like, look, we're in charge of how we think, but there are people that like you to be in that dark place and want you there. Do you just, like, say, I'm sorry, but I can't have you in my life anymore? Like, what do you do with those people that love you being in the dark place?
Yeah, so it was really hard. So I'll give you an example of my DJing. So I've always loved music. So my passion is music, creating sound, and doing like frequency music on a modern house beat. That's like my thing. But when I originally got out, the message was to go and express yourself as a DJ. And for me, DJing was always about bringing conscious movement in. But in that process, I got lost in the nightclub and festival. And in that process, I discovered drugs and all of these other things that absolutely you know wasn't my original intention. So ironically, right, I get out of the first time in a cave, and then I actually go into deeper darkness with this. And what I've noticed is, that group of people there, you almost feel like a sense of like obligation, that you like have to be in that collective energy or construct. And it took me several years before I got out of there, and I was like, no, this is not why I started this. I started this to do a sober parties, to do completely the opposite, to like teach people to do, not do that. And but yet I got lost in that, right? And so it was really hard at first, and I had to have a really strong will to come out. And I had to quit all these relationships. I mean, they're not in my space anymore, any of them.
Yeah, yeah. It's. I mean, it's in. I think there's something about who you surround yourself with, and I've talked about this a lot with my wife, about the light that you share is who you attract. And sometimes people misconstrue the like outgoing, joyous person to be accepting of all, and people sort of the wrong people latch onto it. And find you and then start to abuse you. Like I can imagine, like you have to be able to identify those people too. And I guess it's much easier when you're that connected to yourself to be able to see this person's a piece of shit. I don't really want them in my life. Versus like and you're not here trying to help someone either. That's not your job, right? Your job is to share your light, but let them find their own light. I imagine that also those narcissists who love codependence. I imagine the codependency piece goes away, and you start to have empathy and compassion versus I'm going to take care of you and save you, and like that. I bet you those things kind of dry up a little bit.
I mean, you're right. It's exactly that journey. It was like literally forcing and getting out of this mindset, these people, and but then what's crazy is then you get out of that, and then there's a whole new set of people, and so it's funny how like you do have to either end or transform, right? So you either have people lift up to meet you at your resonance, or you're gonna outgrow them and then find the right people to match that. And when it comes to relationships, I mean, it is the most important part. It's like your life partner, if people have, then it's your family or kids and like the closest ones, right, to nurture. And then it's your tribe, right? It's the other friends and families that make up who we
Well,
are.
yeah, Pavel. There's something interesting too. My wife and I have been together for a long time, and I what I love the most about my wife and about my children and the people that I'm with is that they're all willing to grow and change and shift, and they don't love just being the same person and being stubbornly stuck in that's just the way I am. I think there's something special about those people that if they're willing to change and grow, they're going to allow you to change and grow too, and not judge you for it. And I think that, to me, finding those people is so important, and teaching my children that it's okay to change and to grow, and to not be stuck in your ways. It's hard because kids get a little stubborn because they learn something and they think they're like geniuses. And I'm like, you're in your 20s. You're not a genius yet. Have a few failures, then you'll figure it out. But I imagine like you that's sort of the growth thing is being near and with people that are willing and open to growing because they'll let you grow as well.
Yeah, and the hardest part is that not all family members actually will meet you where you at. And that was so hard for me to accept because the last people that I had in my life, I wanted to I don't want to say fix them. I mean, yes, part of me wanted to, have them be fixed and like also realize this. But then I was like, well, fuck, they're just not ready, and I can't keep on,
That's
doing
right.
this.
That's right. Yeah. Family gets, and family sometimes gets a little extra credit that it shouldn't. It's like you make excuses because you're like, we're related, we're blood. It's like, okay, but if that person's an asshole in your life, you don't really, just because they're your sibling doesn't mean you need to be with them. Um, but I think the extra credit's helpful sometimes when times are tough. But also, it's like if they're being, disruptive and a jerk or competitive and all those things, yeah. If, the extra credit for family, sometimes I'm just like, it's okay. You're just a person like me. Just because you're my brother doesn't, or sister, or whatever, uncle, doesn't mean you get to act that way or treat me that way.
Yeah, and also, I mean, one of my favorite ways is to open up to a families outside of families, because like if you can feel the same love, for your brother and sister as the other brother and sister, I mean, that's really like where it starts. And same way, by the way, I have the same thing with like nature. I like my favorite time. I spend every day at least 20-30 minutes in nature and silence, so it's just me and earth. And essentially, that's when I retune the instrument, and it's became so powerful just to speak to the nature. I've had some of the weirdest experiences, like snake next to me just looking at me. I've had stuff like weirdest stuff, and I try to feel that love for the nature as for for the whole beingness.
I'm going to be honest with the two of you. I'm not sure I'm ready for a hike with the two of you yet.
Yeah.
Sarah's going to be off talking to birds. You have snakes, girl. I
Yeah,
mean, but I no,
you're
I'm
there.
totally kidding, and that was not nice to say. But no, it's true. Like I truly believe what you're saying. I too am the same way, and something that early on, Eckhart Tolle talks about staring at a flower and just marveling at the fact that this plant created this flower, and it wasn't the plant. It needed bees and pollens. It needed all of nature, needed water to grow and sun. Like it needed the collective whole for this flower to appear. And when you stare at a flower, you're like, some people look at it and say, oh, great, pollen, I'm going to have allergies, but you can look at it and it's beautiful. It's incredible. I sometimes we don't stop to just look at how incredible our universe and the things that we have in front of us are. So, and I'm grateful for the two of you, because this has been very special, and I'm thankful that we got to spend time talking about it.
Yes, thank you, Pavel. Well, what would you like to end on then? Because it would be good for people to know, like, where they can find you, what you're doing, kind of, how you're moving forward with this. I'm hoping I might get to see you at one of these biohacking events coming up.
Yes, yes. No, so and it's funny. I know, and it's so much because I actually have the process and everything else. But I think that might be easier. We'll have to share it with people after. But
Yeah.
basically, so what we do is we do retreats, workshops, all over the world. We also have a digital courses, so variety of different meditation, breathwork. I mean, it's all around what I just discussed. And then we also just launched this EMF frequency device that actually helps you for the collective consciousness. It depolarizes the negative effects of the technology pollution. And so it's all under Noah Aeon, NOAAON.com. And then we can also give you guys, if you want a code for your listeners.
Oh,
We'll
for sure.
figure that after.
Yeah, for sure. We'll definitely get that up on the shop so people can kind of take advantage of that and do your courses and things. Like I say, I've done one of your very small workshops before, so I know, it's quite an experience. So, I encourage everybody to do that because, well, not only do you kind of bring your light and bring all of this energy to it, it's just brilliant fun, which is
Yeah.
what we said at the start, really that's what it's all about.
I don't want to end on a strange note, but I'm curious how you look. This is, I don't know if we can delete this out if we need to, but I'm curious, Pavel, what is your belief about passing and what happens to our spirits and our souls when we pass? I'm curious because I think having the experiences of darkness probably make you realize that maybe our body is just a shell. I don't know. I'm curious what you think, because I'm starting to form a different opinion around death as I'm getting older, and I'm seeing loved ones get older, and trying to be more accepting of it, because I don't want to lose anyone. I love the people in my life so much, but like, I'm curious of how can we think about it in a different way, and maybe you have a different opinion of it. So I don't know. We can take it out if it's a weird question.
It's funny. I actually always was scared of death, and since young age, I was like watching my parents, get older and older, and then, now my kids are telling me that I'm old, and I'm like, what? Shut up!
No, I'm
but
old. I'm old.
but like then I'm like, what? So no. So I actually, so what I've realized through the mental unhacking, so to speak, it all came back. Every single fear that I've ever had came back to one fear, and that's fear of death. And so when you repattern that death doesn't exist, like it just doesn't, and I've been far enough in this journey where I've experienced what that feels like through these crazy experiences. And basically it's just a transition into a new form, into a new it's like going into a deep meditation, and you're just gonna stay in whatever that vision is, and then you're just gonna go, and then that's the next phase of your life. That's how I see it.
That's beautiful.
That's it.
I love that. I love that. I'm not hopeful that that's true. I believe that that's true, and it gives you a different type of feeling around the survival mode that we're in, and sometimes we are not kind people when survival mode comes in, and so maybe we can rethink that a little bit and let people just be, right, and not worry so much about your own survival, but the collective survival. So.
Absolutely.
Beautiful.
Lovely. Yeah, super cool. Thank you again, Pavel. It's really
Yes.
lovely to see you. Really appreciate your time. Yeah, it's brilliant talking to you.
Same. Thank you guys so much for your time. And I'll connect us so we can send you like a code or something, so that way
Yep.
there's some
Beautiful.
value.
Beautiful. Yeah, we'll do Code Rebel Scientist. Perfect. Okay, thank you.
Breaking the gray.